Samantha, Miranda, and Charlotte all dressed up and ready to go to Abu Dhabi?
It's Sex and the City 2, The Sands of Time. Wait, that can't be right.
Get out of town.
My point exactly. I can hear the decadence calling.
Also coming up this week.
Give me the dagger!
Jake Gyllenhaal sports a six-pack and a nice pair of sandals in Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time.
And a new HBO movie takes us back to the 90s. I feel younger already. It stars Michael Sheen as Tony Blair and Dennis Quaid as Bill Clinton.
And they lived happily
Ever.
after.
Plus, we catch up with Shrek Forever After and MacGruber.
Is he dead?
Yes, he's dead.
1 week in Abu Dhabi, all expenses paid.
I've always been fascinated by the Middle East. You know, desert moons.
Like Jasmine and Aladdin?
Yes, sweetie, but with cocktails.
Sex and the City 2 answers the question, how do Carrie and her friends look in burqas? I'm Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm A.O. Scott of the New York Times.
From 1998 to 2004, the best episodes of the HBO series Sex and the City made a strong case for cable television comedy being better and more bracing than most anything you could find on the big screen. It's a different story with the movie spin-offs. First one 2 years ago, it was a big hit with the cosmos-swilling fan base, and it was fairly entertaining. This new one brings back the Manhattan Quartet, played by Sarah Jessica Parker, Kim Cattrall, Kristen Davis, and Cynthia Nixon, and I frankly don't know what it is.
Her best gay friend is marrying my best gay friend. That's wonderful. I know. Let me get the registry.
Thanks.
How did this even happen? I thought they hated each other.
It's like musical chairs. The music stopped, and they were the last two left standing.
The sequel starts out pretty well with the big fat gay wedding of Carrie's pals. Meantime, Carrie is settling in for well-heeled domestic bliss with Mr. Big, played by Chris Noth. Bliss plus a little boredom.
It's engraved.
Me and you. Just us two. Your gift is in the bedroom.
There better be something in there I haven't already seen.
For an hour or so, Sex and the City 2 plays like two lesser but enjoyable episodes of the series. Then, the quartet is whisked off for a getaway hosted by public relations maven Samantha to Abu Dhabi. It's set up as the last really wealthy place on Earth, and therefore catnip for these characters that have become camp echoes of the women we remember from the series.
Can't you join me for a drink?
Oh, I can't tonight. It's girls' night out. But I do have tomorrow free, all day and night.
Perhaps you'd be open for a late dinner.
I'd be open.
Now, Sex and the City never really took place on planet Earth, but this 2.5-hour wallow leaves the galaxy entirely. These characters have become prisoners of their own insufferable privilege. And in the karaoke scene, when the ladies sing the feminist anthem, I Am Woman, and bring together a nightclub full of oppressed women, all you can think is, are these four fashionistas really what Helen Reddy had in mind? I say skip it. Tony, what happened to these characters?
Well, I was just going to ask you that question. I mean, these women were so likable and refreshing and interesting for so long.
And really funny, really funny.
And very funny and living a life that a lot of people could fantasize about living. Now, I mean, this movie, it is so long. It's so boring. I mean, for about 20 minutes, you just watch them walk around this hotel in Abu Dhabi, it's actually really in Morocco, and just sort of, you know, marvel at how fabulous and beautiful their surroundings are, which really gets old quickly. Then there's sort of a bunch of plot elements thrown in at the end. Aiden, the ex-boyfriend of Carrie, played by John Corbett, shows up, and what's going to happen there, and there's some nanny problems back home with Charlotte, and Samantha's getting in all kinds of trouble. None of it is any fun, and none of it, I think, really resonates with the way people in the audience are living or even dreaming about living.
Now and then you have an attempt in the screenplay to acknowledge how rough the economy is and how difficult. Well, the movie doesn't want to deal with any of that, and in a way, it sort of goes into overdrive and making it much more of a kind of a fantasy. And frankly, the way these actresses, who are all very good, and Sarah Jessica Parker was a fantastic anchor to the series. They're all kind of dressed and camped up to the point the relatability is almost shot completely in this film.
I think it is, and also the sense that something interesting might happen to these people that you might care about, because they're all, you know, 3 of the 4 are married, and Samantha is very set in her sexually promiscuous ways, and none of that is going to be disrupted. So they just are kind of spinning their wheels into middle age, and an opportunity opportunity is lost to really show them, you know, growing into the next phase of life.
And I think that here's the main thing. King, the writer-director here, just does not know how to fill out 2.5 hours. And you don't get the compression and the wit of the series. So it just sort of floats in the night.
Well, and it just ages you terribly as you watch it.
Right. We'll continue this discussion of Sex and the City, too, on our website with special guest Dana Stevens from Slate.com. Just click on Web Exclusives.
All right, our next movie also has some characters who made it big in the 90s. Take a look at this scene and tell me if you recognize that guy in the tub.
You know, Bill Clinton was once asked who would he go to if there was a crisis in the room. He said his wife. Now, you'd never say that.
Yes, I would.
Rubbish.
No, it's not actually former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, but the British actor Michael Sheen. He played Blair in The Queen opposite Helen Mirren, and now he reprises the role in a new HBO movie premiering this weekend called The Special Relationship. Dennis Quaid is Sheen's foil, this time playing Bill Clinton. Here, the two leaders have an informal get-acquainted lunch with their wives, Hillary and Cherie, just after the election that's brought Blair to power.
Now, we got off to a bad start, and it's taken us 4 years to recover. The other thing is to start thinking now about what you want your legacy to be.
In office less than a month. You want me to work out my legacy?
No, Bill's right. Because if you don't do it, other people will do it for you.
That's Helen McCrory as Cherie Blair and Hope Davis quietly stealing the movie as Hillary Rodham Clinton. Special Relationship brings back memories of Monica Lewinsky, the war in Kosovo, and other events of the 1990s. Written by Peter Morgan, who also wrote The Queen and Frost Nixon, it's a study in the way personalities and friendships shape political events. Here's Blair getting Clinton's back at the height of the Lewinsky scandal.
I've worked with President Clinton for some 9 months. I have found him throughout someone I could trust, someone I could rely upon, someone I am proud to call not just a colleague, but a friend.
These two characters are natural allies, but their alliance is complicated. And for all its attention to big developments on the world stage, The Special Relationship is modest in scope, a quiet drama rather than a historical epic. It's smart and believable and very well acted, and with some real insights that make it worth seeing.
I'd say see it too, Tony. I'm not sure Dennis Quaid is the ideal Clinton. It's interesting to kind of stack him up against the other actors who have lately taken on this character. You know, among them John Travolta as a Clinton-esque, well, a disguised Clinton in Primary Colors, right? I think it's different than the kind of unbelievable naturalism and ease you get with Michael Sheen's performance as Tony Blair, who, yes, is a less familiar politician to American audiences in many ways than Clinton. But what you have here is a dramatist, Peter Morgan, who just, with The Queen, as you mentioned, with movies like The Last King of Scotland, he's a really shrewd writer when it comes to balancing a story between two kind of opposing poles, as he did with The Queen.
And also with investigating the way that power and personality and ambition work together. So you have this fascinating rivalry and friendship between these two guys. And, you know, in a way, they both betray each other, and it's hard to tell which side the movie wants you to come down on, because I don't think it is taking a side. It's just looking, here are these two personalities colliding, working together, working against each other. There's a great feeling of you know, almost sort of Shakespeare-light palace intrigue going on.
Yeah. And in fact, Frost Nixon, Morgan's play and then movie, based on that same kind of balance, right? And many
also with Michael Sheen.
Many people thought that was, in a way, too sympathetic toward Nixon, but he's very astute that way. And it is well acted in the main.
Yes, it's a very smart movie. Coming up next, the latest big screen video game adaptation, Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time.
And later we'll catch up on movies already in theaters, including Shrek Forever After and MacGruber. Are they worth your time and money?
Let's move!
The only way to stop this Armageddon is for us to take the dagger to the secret Guardian Temple. We must take it there, Dastan.
You really enjoy telling me what to do, don't you?
Only because you're so good at following orders.
Back in the late 1980s, when Tony was still living the lifestyle captured by Hot Tub Time Machine, a young video game programmer named Jordan Mechner created Prince of Persia. Now, a generation later, the game has become a full-length movie, and as video game movies go, we've seen far worse. We've certainly never seen a more orange movie than this. It looks like it was lit by heat lamps stolen from Arby's roast beef. Can't tell from that clip, but Jake Gyllenhaal, that great Persian actor, manages a credible British dialect in addition to incredible feats of running and jumping as the prince. Now, the prince was a street urchin adopted by the king of all the lands from the steppes of China to the shores of the Mediterranean, as the prologue tells us. After a brutal invasion of a holy city fails to locate the weapons they were told were hidden there, the prince and his allies scramble for control of a magical dagger that can turn back time. Here's that time rewind bit. And that's Gemma Arterton, last seen surrounded by computer-generated special effects in Clash of the Titans. The reason this movie works at all? 2 words: Alfred Molina, hamming it up like the Grand Vizier of comic relief as a shady promoter of ostrich races, of all things.
I've heard all these terrible stories of this place.
The bloodthirsty slaves murdering their masters. That's a good story. Now, I crafted our lurid reputation in order to fend off the most insidious evil that's been lurking this forsaken country of ours. You know what I'm talking about? Taxes.
I didn't realize the Tea Party movement went back that far. Ben Kingsley, more restrained than usual, plays the prince's protector. Mike Newell, who did the 4th Harry Potter film, directed, or rather made way for the barrage of visual effects. The cast makes perpetual chaos reasonably entertaining. Enough, I think, to say rent it. How about you?
I go a little further than that. I would say, you know, in the context of kind of bad, dumb, overly serious, overly long action movies like, say, Robin Hood, this one is fun.
Oh,
this is a movie that knows exactly how dumb it is, and it's very lighthearted. And Mike Newell is a real director. And yes, you know, he makes way for the kind of video game-inspired chases and fights, which are less interesting than they might be. But he also lets the actors actually give performances. There's a good deal of kind of witty byplay between Arterton and Gyllenhaal. Alfred Molina, as you said,
well, he's the reason it got me through it.
Fantastic. He brings it alive, but also I liked Ben Kingsley, you know, who obviously stole most of Gemma Arterton's eye makeup.
There's a lot of mascara.
There's a lot of mascara, but as a kind of old-fashioned B-picture programmer, I thought it was a lot of fun.
You know, fun up to a point, and I just wish the action wasn't so sliced and diced by 3 different editors in a way that I don't think really brings out much of what you're really getting out of what little story you have here. That's the main thing, Tony.
It's a big story. It's a story about the rise and fall of the empire.
Here's the story in one sentence. Oh, we got to get that dagger. You're right. We have to get that dagger, and then it's just getting the dagger.
It's full of magic sand. Do you know what happens if that would get into the wrong hand?
It would be well. It would be Armageddon, as we learn. You know, I agree. It's dangerous.
I said this movie didn't take itself too seriously, but I don't think you take it seriously enough.
Well, Alfred Molina. That's what I said.
All right. Touche. Coming up next, has Shrek run out of gas? And why is MacGruber such a bomb? Next week, Jonah Hill and Russell Brand get him to the Greek.
Now this is what the music industry is all about.
Plus, Adrian Brody and Sarah Pauly in Splice. Next week at the movies.
You should not be here, senor. Puss? You've got to be kidding me.
Shrek is back again for the 4th installment in this popular animated franchise. It's called Shrek Forever After.
And what's your vote?
My vote is rent it. You know, I thought that the story was a little more interesting than the Shrek 2 and Shrek 3. It's got a kind of midlife crisis, sort of It's a Wonderful Life spin on the character, which kind of, you know, engaged me a little bit. I have to say, though, this one is in 3D.
Right.
And it added nothing. It's really kind of a ripoff to charge people extra money to see this in 3D.
I say skip it, but especially in 3D, because you really, we're starting to learn now, Tony, how many movies you know, simply are not worth the markup. This one, I think, has the same paucity of wit and script issues as frankly the whole Shrek series. Just not my thing. The one thing that kind of hurts, though, is that Mike Myers is actually giving a really good voiceover performance, completely sincere and a little tender, that I didn't get in the first couple pictures.
Yeah, there's a little more feeling.
Yeah, but the script does not support it, so, you know, useless. Also in theaters, based on a Saturday Night Live sketch, is MacGruber, starring Will Forte, Kristen Wiig, and Ryan Phillippe.
Okay, so once we take out the guards, Vicky will walk in dressed as Haas, and then we'll just, you know, see what happens. You ready?
Oh, wait. So we're just gonna wing it?
Piper, there's a big difference between winging it and seeing what happens.
This one,
See what happens.
a lot of people have already skipped, so I guess I say keep skipping it.
Continue to skip.
This was
Okay,
just dreadful. I mean, you know, the sketches are okay. Why they decided that the way to blow this up into a feature film was to go the hard R, you know, F-bomb and throats being ripped out, blood and gore and sex route, it just is a disaster.
I mean, we should say for the newcomers that this is basically a spoof of sort of 90s action pictures, and this guy's kind of a clean.
And the show MacGyver.
Yeah,
also.
yeah. I mean, and Forte's, you know, character is just this clueless, you know, destructive guy. It's some of these things, Tony, do expand easily to feature length, and some of these 2-minute sketches look a little thin at 87 to 92 minutes.
Well, and we're going to talk about that a little further, because coming up next, Will Ferrell, Chris Farley, Eddie Murphy, and Dan Aykroyd all make appearances on our list of the most underrated and overrated movies featuring alums from Saturday Night Live.
Well, that's going to do it for all of us here at Channel 4 News. You stay classy, San Diego. I'm Ron Burgundy.
Who typed a question mark on the teleprompter? For the last time, anything you put on that prompter, Burgundy will read.
They're often known as the not ready for primetime players, but that hasn't stopped members of the cast of Saturday Night Live from heading for the big screen. So in honor, if you want to call it that, of MacGruber, our over-under segment this week looks back at 35 years of SNL alums in the movies, going all the way back to...
Animal House.
Animal House.
For my money. 1978.
That takes me back to junior high.
I was in high school. That made a huge impact on my life and movie going.
But what's your pick for the most underrated? I mean, we're talking about dozens, if not
underrated.
hundreds
Okay, of the more recent sort of alumni crops, I would say Will Ferrell, his finest moment for my money was Anchorman, and that supporting cast, Paul Rudd, Steve Carell. It is a remarkable cast.
Yes.
You know, it's a sloppy comedy in many ways, but I find whole segments of that, like the jazz flute first date, his conversations with his dog Baxter, fantastic.
It explains a lot about you too, because I think of you as kind of the Ron Burgundy of television film criticism.
Oh, very good, thank you. Well, what about you?
Well, for me, I have a real soft spot for Chris Farley, who I think in some ways was more gifted than John Belushi, and like Belushi, you know, died much too young before we saw what he could really do. His movie with David Spade, the first one, Tommy Boy, is just, I think, a riot. I mean, it's not a great piece of cinema, but the two of them have this kind of comic chemistry, like the big fat, sloppy, goofy guy and the sort of, you know, skinny, little, fussy, nasty, cynical guy. I think they're an underrated team.
I would say the one thing that really you can say about that is it's before, especially David Spade fell into a rut and started feeling very familiar in a wrong way. Yeah, maybe I'll give it another look. Well, what about your overrated?
Overrated, I have to say it's Ghostbusters.
Why?
Which is not a terrible movie. Well, partly because it just, you know, helped to turn comedy at that time into something much larger scale, more special effectsy, and driven by kind of taglines and easy wisecracks.
I think Bill Murray basically heckling his own movie is why I liked it at the time.
But I like him better in so many other things.
Yeah, true enough. My overrated would be right around from the same time, Trading Places. Eddie Murphy's one of his early big starring roles with Dan Aykroyd. You know, a film a lot of people really love. To me, it's too sluggish, too heavy on its feet to really recall the 30s and 40s screwball comedies. It's not bad, but I find its reputation kind of mysterious. So, you know.
Yeah, I think that actually that Murphy's certainly better in 48 Hours or the first Beverly Hills Cop.
Absolutely. So that's a few of them. Coming up next, can't decide what to see in theaters? Stay tuned for Mine 3 to See.
Closed captioning for At the Movies is sponsored by Hotel provided by Park Hyatt Chicago, Chicago's award-winning hotel and luxury dining experience, located in the heart of Chicago's Magnificent Mile on Water Tower Square.
My 3 to see have nothing to do with Manhattanites prancing around Abu Dhabi. Number 3, yes, it's been critically derided, but I'm going with Robin Hood, which I think is zesty enough in its overstuffed way to erase the bad memories of the 1990s version starring Kevin Costner. Number 2, Letters to Juliet, a lightly comic and very sweet romance starring Amanda Seyfried and Vanessa Redgrave. And number 1, The Special Relationship on HBO this weekend, an exploration of the sometimes uneasy alliance of Bill Clinton, played by Dennis Quaid, and British Prime Minister Tony Blair, played by Michael Sheen. HBO continues to be a home for biopics that actually work. And
who's going to
very
play
good.
us in the one about us, you think?
That's
a special relationship.
That HBO doesn't have the nerve to put us on there.
That's it for now. We'll leave you with a recap of this week's show. Now you can join the discussion by following us on Facebook and on Twitter. Just go to atthemoviestv.com to find out how.
Join us next week for reviews of Get Him to the Greek and Splice. And until then, we'll be at the movies.